I had a mentor that got smacked with a $600,000 tax bill. Here's something extremely valuable that I learned from him. He basically told me, and this is actually from his accountant, who said that it's better to pay fines than to pay taxes like everyone else because you'll save so much more money, it'll be cheaper in the long run. Use the tax laws to your advantage enough to maybe get fined, but not cross the line so much that you go to jail. He's like, that's the line that you should work to walk when you're paying taxes. And here's how he took this bill from $600,000 down to $80,000. He fired one accountant and got the new guy who told you this valuable lesson, and he only paid $20,000. And he's like, there's a good chance you're gonna get fined, but it'd be way cheaper than paying it like that guy said to pay it. He ended up paying a $60,000 fine and in total only paid $80,000, saved, basically $500,000 on taxes with this valuable lesson that I learned. So here's the 3 different places you can live to save money on taxes without getting thrown in jail. And to give you guys some context, I previously lived in Illinois, and just last year, 6 months ago, I moved to Miami in Florida. And what a lot of people don't know about Florida is the 0% state tax in the United States. So if you're in the States, there's a bunch of different options for you to pick. But number one of the places to live to save money on taxes, some of the better ones are basically Florida, Tennessee, Texas, and Nevada. And if you want to live on a fucking iceberg in Alaska, you could live in Alaska and Montana and Wyoming and some other just horrifically boring states that you probably don't want to live in. You can take that route if you want to, but Florida, Texas, Nevada, Tennessee are probably the top 4. Just based on living standards and stuff like that I would prefer to live in. So where a lot of people go wrong when it's 0%, you don't have to pay taxes, false, because Florida, Tennessee, Texas, Nevada, these 0% state taxes states, you still have to pay federal, but you're gonna save a good chunk of money being in a 0% state tax state versus something like California. And there's actually another guy I spoke to that used to live in San Diego in California. California is the worst, highest possible state tax that you could possibly pay. He basically told me that he was making $100,000 a year in San Diego, to where he was paying literally 50% taxes between state and federal there. So he was giving up 50 grand every single year. I can't even conceptualize half of his money just thrown away to the government. Bizarre. And then he kind of came down to, he was like, what is the state actually providing me? If I felt crazy, super safe, I had an insane quality of life, everything was better, things were cheaper, everything was amazing, high quality of life, sure. But California got to the point to where he was paying so much money to them and they weren't really providing him that great of things. There's tons of homeless people. Say what you want about their government, their policies, and the freedom that people there have. I don't want to touch that because I like YouTube to continue to give me views here. I would not live in California for the tax reasons alone, but everything else is just cherries and sprinkles on top as to why I wouldn't live there. But point being is he made the exact same amount of money the next year moving to Miami, and he saved 30 grand. So made 100, only paid 20, so he kept 80. Literally made $30,000 difference just from being in one state or another. So if you're in this, the US, and you wanna stay within the US, I highly recommend going to a 0% state tax state within the US. Don't only factor in just the financials. Sure, saving 20, 30, 40, 50, even 100 grand on taxes is a massive, massive, massive plus. But don't be miserable in a state you don't want to live in, fucking Alaska, just to save a couple bucks. Because there's other ways you can actually value and kind of determine if a place is the right fit for you. And I'll explain my personal buckets for how I kind of view and tally a scoreboard for if I should live at a place or not, and why I chose Miami over Tennessee or Texas or stuff like that, right? So what I kind of look for is networking capabilities, general happiness, and kind of weather are kind of my big 3 or so. So number one, networking. If you look at Miami, some of the top entrepreneurs everywhere, especially in my niche of business, live in Miami. Some of these guys that do crazy numbers, that do millions of dollars a month, they live here. So I'm not really into the flashy like rah-rah stuff, which I'll talk about, but it's there. You can see the Lambos, the Ferraris, the everything, and although that's not really my forte, there are people that have that kinds of money, so you can run into these people getting groceries, or like when you're at a nice restaurant, like you will run into these people. So networking wise, 10 out of 10 in Miami. You go to Miami, you can go to Tampa, Orlando, like there's a couple big cities that are really, really sick here. Weather, 10 out of 10. Like it's 75, 80, 90 degrees year round. Like it's nearly December here and 85 degrees, 80 degrees is beautiful here. Like you just can't go wrong. Kind of like the last bucket is general happiness. I have all of my family is like in Illinois. So although I am extremely happy, I love the weather, I love the taxes, like networking wise, it's like phenomenal. I'm 1,000 miles away from my family. So happiness is still there, love it here, but I am far from family. That's something I factor in, which probably puts me at like a 6, 7 or so out of 10 for Miami and kind of just Florida in general. So you could do the same thing with like Tennessee. I'm like, I don't like the vibe in Tennessee is very like country, like yeehaw, like let's go listen to music and like go to karaoke night. Not my vibe. I would not be happy there just for that reason. But I love the mountains. So like, you see what I mean? There's other things to categorize aside from simply money. But the cool thing about these 0% state taxes is networking is almost top tier for all of them. Because with these laws, it attracts people that make good money. The guy I was just talking about that was making 100K in Cali and moved here. A bunch of people flock to these states because they can save money. So networking is almost always better in one of these states versus somewhere that charges high taxes. Another thing to factor in is, again, it's 0% state tax, you're still going to pay federal. So you're still kind of getting screwed over a little bit here. As far as like federal goes in the United States, it varies anywhere from 10 to 37%. If you make like 20 grand a year, you get only taxed like 10%. If you make over $500,000 a year, you get taxed 37%. Which is rough, that's a chunk. So if you're somewhere in between, it kind of just is like tiered like that. I think it's like 24% if you're between like 100 to like 170 grand. I mean, you could look it up. So if you want to like graduate beyond just like 0% state taxes in the US, there's another graduation beyond this. It's like going from high school to like college. and that next like college is Puerto Rico, which is number 2. Still a United States territory, but the taxes are like, mwah, like they're, oh my God, they're so nice. And that's why you will see a bunch of heavy hitters live in Puerto Rico. Like if you look at, there's a lot of big names. Like Tai Lopez lives out there. A lot of mentors and stuff that I've met at masterminds and all types of, big people in like crypto investing space, online business space live in Puerto Rico for these reasons. Like drum roll here, 4% corporate tax in Puerto Rico. 0% capital gains tax, which is crazy. So what I mean by capital gains tax is like any investment. So this could be real estate, stocks, crypto, literally any investment whatsoever. Any of the profit that you make from there, entirely yours. And if you run your own business, they only actually tax you 4%. So me living in Florida, and this varies on my tax bracket, not going to completely dox myself, but I'm probably gonna get taxed about 35%. In total between federal and like everything, ballpark, I could be wrong, somewhere around there this year. Whereas if I were in Puerto Rico, it'd be 4%. So like, it's like a 10x difference if I were in Puerto Rico, which is like massive, right? There's beaches, it's beautiful there. There's a bunch of jungles. So like, I love hiking. I've been out to Puerto Rico. It's freaking beautiful out there. Probably some of the cons are, and my views are kind of stepping out here, very liberal, that's kind of like the vibe they're after, kind of similar to California in that sense. So if that's not your vibe, it may not be the place for you. And then also not really too much different than Miami, but a lot of people there speak Spanish. Like it's all Puerto Ricans and they primarily speak Spanish. Anywhere you go, you can speak English and you're fine. For the most part, the further you get away from like the city, like San Juan, like if you get into smaller towns, it's gonna be more and more Spanish. If you're in San Juan, like big city, like the English is pretty much everywhere. But something to consider, I would highly recommend being fluent in Spanish if you were to live there for a long term. And if that's, a negative for you, it may not be the place for you to be. But the pros would be Puerto Rican food is like so good. Like I love Puerto Rican food, top tier stuff. Any Hispanic food is like, got my heart. It's so good. And the people there are very down to earth, very, very nice people. And again, I'm huge into hiking and stuff like that. When I went there, I was hiking like all through the rainforest, like jumping off cliffs into the water. Like it's so sick there. Which brings me to number 3, which is, if you guys don't know, Dubai. Dubai is like tax heaven for rich people. 0% everything. I mean, you could make $100 million in 1 year profit and bring home $100 million. This could be through investments, this could be through earned income, this could be through your business, this could be through a JOB, this could be through anything. 0%, no stipulations, no catch, no nothing. You can literally spend 6 months and 1 day of the year in Dubai and then go live wherever you want for the rest of the year, 0% taxes. It's wild. I don't know what else there's to say about it. It is literally 0% and there's no catch, which is crazy, which is why it's the top on the list here, because there are no taxes, which is just absurd. There are cons that come with that. I mean, it's in the Middle East, so like it's very different. It's like a desert climate. It's brutally hot there. And the city was built in like the 90s. So there's no real history. It's kind of like Vegas if you've been there, just a random eruption of like buildings and money. And like, there's no like history there. It's kind of just a random eruption of money. It was all built on like oil money, which is why like it's so rich out there. Like people have just fuck you money out there. Like it's absurd. The laws there are pretty strict. Like I know no one steals there. Like the crime rate is so low, because I don't know exactly, this, and tell me in the comments if I'm completely wrong. Like you can't hold hands in the streets. Like if you steal, it's like 10, 20 years in prison. No cannabis consumption whatsoever, or you are in jail for a very long time. Like they're super, super strict on stuff like that. So, if that's not your world and that's not what you're doing, like you golden, no problems whatsoever. But if those are some of the things that you do, it may not be the place for you. It's very strict. It's in the Middle East, so it's very similar to their laws, and how they are culturally is how it is there. So definitely something to consider. And it's also in a freaking desert. It's like 100, 110 degrees like year round. I'm not a big fan of deserts. There's no green. It's just like brown sand. I would not be happy in Dubai, which is why I'll never live there. Like I said, with being literally the tax heaven of the world, 0% everything, who do you think lives there? Billionaires, multi-millionaires, like everyone that's there that runs businesses, they do numbers. And it's a phenomenal place to live, like for that reason. Like networking is crazy out there. Like I have friends that live out there and they're like, yeah, I'll be getting coffee, getting dinner, and I'll run into a dude that's doing $100 million a year, and it's just like, well, like just another one of those guys. Like it's just so normal out there, and there's just a crazy amount of wealth. So you're surrounded by people that just do, crazy numbers. You can learn so much from the people that you interact with. Like you are the 5 people that you surround yourself with. Like you're gonna be around 5, rich motherfuckers that are saving money on taxes. But that largely brings me, to the end of this video, kind of concludes everything. Largely, it's gonna come down to like what you actually value. Like if networking is a bigger priority than being in close proximity to your family, some of these, Puerto Rico, Dubai, whatever, probably make a little bit more sense. If you prefer to stay in the States, you're better off going into 0% state tax. Like if weather is a priority, whether you prefer the cold, you prefer the warm, if you don't like being in flashy cities, if you like country, all these things are something you need to factor in. And ultimately what it comes down to, if you're really deciding to like make this move, like similar to like what I did, write out your priorities, whether it's saving money on taxes, it's money, it's networking, it's proximity to family, it's weather, whatever those are, and use this video as kind of like a guide to figure out which of all these places I listed is best for you. And I highly recommend making that move, because you will save so much money as you start making more and more. And if you haven't already, about 89% of you people watching right now have not subscribed yet. So please subscribe to the channel so you can get notifications for the next one.